Well, welcome to another episode of Rimshots with Sean, brought to you by Barstools and Bandtalk. I'm here with another friend from California, new friend, but I've witnessed some of his, I guess, liveness a couple weeks ago at the Whiskey A Go Go. Mr. Blaze Francisco of Blaze Francisco in Woodland Hills, California. How are you, sir?
Good, man. Good, Sean. How you doing, man?
I'm great. So, you're my girl Raquel keeps hooking me up with her clients. I mean, she does an awful lot. How long have you been working with Raquel?
Very recently, I would say about a month. So it's pretty fresh. Yeah, but I mean, so far it's been excellent. I can't, it's led me here, so I can't complain.
She works at a very high rate of speed, so that is great. It's great. So that whiskey show that I saw, that was a couple of weeks ago, I guess.
Yeah.
Was that the first time you had played there?
No, no. We started playing there probably about a year and a half, 2 years ago, and developed a really cool relationship with the whole production and booking staff there. So we get hit up about a lot of the shows that just need some local support, and I'm always willing to play there because it's obviously, I don't need to tell you, it's such an iconic venue, and everyone there is so great. The fans are always awesome. We're always getting new fans after every show, and no, we played there a bunch, and I it's one of my favorite venues probably to play.
Well, and you're right. You don't have to tell me because growing up, I mean, I grew up in the whole Motley Crue hair metal era, if you will, and it was always a dream. I've never been in. I was by in 1988. A friend of mine was going to GIT back in the day. He was from here. But for anybody that has not been in that room, just you walk in that room. I'm assuming it has an aura about it. You just go in. It's just like wow, history was made here in so many different ways.
It's incredible, man. It's like, yeah, just from walking through the front door, I mean, it's kind of like a museum to rock and roll there. They have, jackets from Crew, from AC/DC, from the Doors, from I mean, there's just like artifacts from the history of rock and roll everywhere you look. And then being backstage there is a whole other element because you just can't imagine the history that was kind of made there. It just feels like, you're sort of in this like otherworldly presence when you're there. It's just awesome. Yeah.
Yeah. It's like I guess if the walls could talk, it would be pretty interesting. And everybody knows it's familiar with the whiskey. If you go up around the corner, there's a famous Motley Crue house there that they uh, used to beat the crap out of and all that stuff. So it's just what a neighborhood. And so you guys play there. I saw the video. Good crowd, responsive crowd. My vibe on you guys in terms of you sent me a song and I was just like, wow, this got a real Chili's kind of feel to it. What is your vibe? I mean, what do you guys, I guess, in terms of influences, what is it you guys shoot for? Oh, you there?
Oh, sorry, the
Oh,
video is kind of cutting out a little bit. Can you hear me?
that's
Yeah,
I
sorry, the
can.
video was kind of cutting out a bit.
Yeah, we
Are you
got you.
there?
I got you. I guess the question is, so you sent me that song. I listened to it, and it had a Chili's vibe to it. I mean, I said to you, wow, killer groove. I'm a drummer myself, loved it. What are some of your
Yeah.
influences? Because every time Raquel sends me one of her bands, I can never quite put my thumb on who and what they came from.
Yeah. No, totally, man. I think that's kind of the whole what I'm sort of going for because I'm a drummer myself. And I think I start every songwriting process with finding the groove, whether it's just, a line, whether it's a beat, whatever it is, and then I just kind of build and layer off of that. So personally, my influences are kind of all over the place, from Rage Against the Machine, Led Zeppelin, The Hives, Queens of the Stone Age is huge for me, just like in general for a vibe sense, and Nine Inch Nails. I would say kind of the vibe that Trent Reznor has as far as sort of mashing together genres and kind of being the architect behind all of his music. That's sort of what I model myself after. I'm not great at a lot of instruments, but I know exactly what I want a song to sound like. So I can get that through, and then everyone that I play with can help me kind of mold the idea that I have in my head. So the influences are all over the place, and I just try to put out what I like to hear and what sounds the grooviest to me. And that's sort of what comes out.
I love what you're saying there because I work with a songwriter who doesn't know theory. I mean, she knows she can sing like you wouldn't believe. She can harmonize. She knows she can go to a guitar party and say, "This is what I want you to play." But in terms of an actual theory based. She doesn't have it, and she's been kind of made feel inferior by people when she's written before. I love what you're saying about, I guess, to paraphrase, you're putting out there what you like, and hey, man, if you want to put your theory to it, great. We're not about theory. We're about vibe. We're about groove. We're about feel. We're about all those things. Is that a fair statement?
Absolutely, man. Absolutely. And I actually came from a classical background of music. So I grew up playing in orchestras and symphonic bands and things like that, playing like brass instruments. So, I didn't really have a songwriting background, but I always had an ear and I always knew what I wanted, like what I would want a song to sound like. And yeah, like you said, I don't think you need to have a musical theory brain to be able to achieve that. If you have the ear and you know what you want it to sound like, and you can just kind of get the message through, I think that's all that matters, because that can show through the right person, I feel like.
Thank God for the mute button. I had a coughing fit there. And you told me just before we started, you're originally from Florida.
Yeah, from South Florida, born and raised. Yeah.
Were you doing much music down there before you went to California?
Yeah, so I was always in bands starting from like the age of 13. I was kind of playing like pop punk ska bands. That was kind of the scene down there. So I was growing up in that. And then I kind of drifted more into the acting world, and I did a lot of acting, a lot of writing and comedy and things like that. Always keeping a toe in music though, always playing in bands, just very like loosey goosey. And then when I came out here, I was really involved in acting. That's kind of what brought me out here, and sort of just always had the music thing knocking, on my ear. And I really just tried to get a song out that was rattling around in my brain. It sort of just took me off to the races from there.
So, so as a guy that I guess you're a transplant from Florida, and I mean,
Yeah.
you move from one hot climate to another hot climate, but I've always heard that Florida has in different pockets an amazing kind of different vibey music scene. So you're leaving one scene to go to another scene for acting, but that town that you're in now is so tremendously competitive in pretty much everything. Is that a fair statement?
Absolutely fair. And I think I took a meeting when I first moved out here with a huge agency that just I wasn't, anywhere near ready for, but I was fortunate enough to do it. And I think the one thing they told me is that, look, everyone, there are 1,000 of you. I think what sets people aside is what you bring to the table. So what you make on your own, who things like that. So I really kind of implanted that. And I said, okay, well, I'm coming here having been in a like a couple fast food commercials. I didn't write them, I didn't produce them. That was just my gig. So ever since then, I'm like, okay, what can I write? What can I create that is going to be different than some guy, 10 miles away that might look exactly like me? And since that, I've really just been trying to be as creative and as possible.
Um, I've got a couple friends out there that play in bands, but they're also in movies and TV. One of them is Sean Duncan, the drummer from LA Guns. Another gentleman is Sean McNabb,
Oh yeah.
who, pardon me, he's been in Sons of Anarchy, but he's played bass with a number of different people. What do you think it is about musicians in the music business that maybe translates or is a transition into either one or the other in terms of film and music?
So I'll look at it from the other side, being like an actor going into music. What I feel like for me, and why I think Blaze Francisco has been so focused on the live shows before, we haven't even really put out any music that has our current sound in a while. So for me, it's a performance aspect. I wouldn't call myself the greatest singer in the world classically by any means, but I can perform and I can sell you. You come to my show for 30 minutes, I can sell you that this band is something you've never seen before, and that I will put on a theatrical performance that you just won't get, from anyone else. So I use the acting, in my music all the time. Even like in kind of in a David Byrne sense, or even go back to Trent Reznor. It's theatrical and it's intense, and I think that can really translate into music a lot. I've found that to be true.
Well, and I mean, um, this day and age, and you mentioned it with the film and TV. I mean, you do have to be different, right? I mean, because there's 1,001 bands. I mean, there's what 60, 70,000 songs a day loaded on Spotify and those types of things. What's
Yeah.
separating you from everybody else? So you do have to have out here. It's funny in my neck of the woods. It's kind of a race to who plays like acoustic shows and all that stuff, but there's not a big show band, I guess, like presence out here. You go to the States, and there's a lot of that. It just seems like if you don't have that aspect of things, you're not going to have an audience. Is that a fair statement?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, there's a story I heard. I'm probably going to misquote parts of it, but it was like when Kiss was kind of starting, they were opening for, I'm not sure, maybe it was Metallica, actually. It was like some bigger band. And they opened and they put on such a crazy performance, just like showmanship wise, that any headliner after them was like, well, what is that? Like, how am I going to follow, this opener, blasting off fire and doing all this pyro? It's like, I don't know if people need to go that far, but I think whatever they want to do to stand out and to make, like we've been supporting acts. We haven't really headlined a ton of shows, and we're supporting, bigger bands that people will come out to see. And I think the coolest thing about that is that I like to stand out in my performance, and I will have fans of those bands come up after me and be like, man, now you guys just became one of my new favorite bands because your show is so intense and you really stood out in that way. And they'll remember that. So I've kind of like dialed that in and filed it away for like, okay, well, I'm going to keep doing that. I'm going to keep, bringing all of my energy and self to the shows.
So, I mean, that's how you can get that organic growth by opening for people. Because I know some people don't like to do it. I mean, I've done it a bunch of times, and you're cut back on stage space, and you can only use so many lights, and maybe you don't get monitors or sound check. But you can really win an audience over. Who are some of those bands that you've had the opportunity to open for?
Yeah, so most recently was Alien Ant Farm, which was very cool. Growing up, huge influence. I think they were very cool and pioneers of a sound that really wasn't there at the time. After that, before that, we opened for this band, Red Jumpsuit Apparatus. They were like a pop punk band when I was in high school. Before that, we opened for apologies. We opened for a band, Orgy. The new metal band that was super cool. Very in line with my influences of Nine Inch Nails and things like that. We opened for the Sweet, so 70s glam rock, which was I grew up listening to them because of my parents, but it was really cool because even their fans were sort of kind of digging our sound. And then we opened for this rapper Mickey Avalon as well. So it's really we've kind of hit every genre, and I think the cool thing is that we have gotten a pocket of fans from all those different genres. We found someone that can kind of relate to our sound through all those shows. That's why I like kind of doing any show that presents itself. I think there's an opportunity in every single show.
Well, as you're winding those bands out, I'm going like, okay, wow, because I've been on shows where you're here and the other band is way over here, and it just doesn't work. You're up there, you're
Yeah.
trying to do whatever you can, and it's like, okay,
Oh
do
yeah.
we just kind of throw in the towel and conform? But it sounds to me like you guys are on so many different things and it works, which I guess speaks to to the diversity of what you guys are doing. I mean, I've only heard a couple songs, but the vibe that I get is you guys could go in many different directions pretty quickly.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And I think that's the cool thing. I'll sort of cater the shows a little bit towards who we're playing with, but not really. We will play the same songs. I mean, I'm not going to change the songs, but I think as far as the vibe goes, if it's a more intense band, I'll give it a little bit more intense energy. But yeah, like you said, I really did feel like at a couple of the shows, I'm like, I don't think these guys are going to dig what we're doing because it is not the sound of who we're playing with. But maybe there was just like a nugget there that they're just like, okay, we're here for these guys, but like you guys, I don't know, there's something new about the sound or that's just kind of like grabbing me about it. And, so far it's been really positive every show. Yeah.
Well, and I lived in Toronto for 7 years, and Toronto has a very eclectic but very open-minded music crowd, right? So you go to a metal show, but if a country band opened, they'd be into it.
Yeah.
Same sort of thing in LA.
Yeah, I've honestly felt that way. And again, maybe it's just the shows we've been playing. We do play the Whiskey a lot, and I think because it's such an iconic venue that you do get a lot of different walks of life coming to shows there. Maybe even people that just want to go to the Whiskey for a night, they're in town. But yeah, I really have felt that way. I think there's so much diversity in music and just in culture here that people are very open-minded to whatever they're going to see for an evening, which has really benefited us, I feel like.
So in terms of what you guys have on the go, I mean, we're what, 3 weeks into 2024. I mean, it's not, we're very, very early days into this year. What's coming up for you guys?
Yeah, it's going to be a really cool year, man. We have our next, well, really our first single of this sound that we're sort of doing now, called "The Reaper," is coming out on the 16th of February. So that's going to be really huge. We have some, Raquel's being extremely helpful with that. I think we're going to get some good push behind that.
That's the one you sent me, right?
Absolutely, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
great tune. I really, I somebody sends you something, you just never know what you're going to get, and sometimes you listen to it and you go, "Ah, you know what? I'm going to be nice." That's not like I was just like, "Wow, this is very, very cool." And I almost, I said Mother's Milk, a Mother's Milk kind of Chili Peppers vibe to it. So
Totally.
anyway,
That was honestly a really really cool comparison too, because I am very into the Chili Peppers. I just saw one of the coolest things about LA for me is just being able to like go to some smaller venue and see the craziest show on like a Wednesday night. But I went to go see the show Chad Smith and Friends. It was the bill of it. They posted it the day of. I'm like, we got to go. It was 10 minutes from my house. And he played with Taylor Hawkins's cover band Chevy Metal. He was like drumming with them. So to like stand, 10 feet away from Chad Smith, who's one of my heroes as a drummer, and just a huge Chili Peppers fan, was iconic. So that little side note, but yeah, I mean, Chili Peppers are huge, huge. Just going back to the whole playing and basing a song off the groove that they do, and that I feel like Rage does, like that's very much on my alley. So thank you for saying that.
right on. So and
Yeah,
as you were saying before, I interrupted, but I had to get it in. So
yeah,
the
sorry.
rest of the year.
Yeah. So we have that single coming out, and then I'm doing another show at the Whiskey on March 7th, opening for the Meteors, which is very cool UK psychobilly band that I'm actually a huge fan of. So that'll be really cool. And then we have actually the full length record is going to come out this summer, and we're going to do a really big headlining record release show at a really cool venue. And then hopefully just do maybe a little tour in the fall. So it's going to be really cool. And I got some videos coming along with all of it too. And the cool thing about working in the acting world for a long time, and my girlfriend also works in the entertainment industry, is that we've developed a really, really cool team and family of very creative minds. So I think it's gonna be cool to see some of the visuals and the videos that we're gonna be doing, which will be coming out soon too.
Amazing. So, last question for you here, sir, Mr.
Yeah,
Blaze Francisco, my new friend from Woodland Hills, California. Where do
sure.
my viewers find out about what you're up to, and how can they follow you over the next little bit?
Yeah, man. So the biggest for me is Instagram right now. It's just at Blaze Cisco, Cisco. If you just type in Blaze Francisco, or even just Blaze, it probably will come up. That's sort of where I do all the content right now. And then Spotify is obviously all streaming platforms is where the single will be coming out, but there will be a really big push on that wherever you kind of find music. But also just type in Blaze Francisco on Google, and you'll see a lot of cool press and stuff that we've done. So yeah,
Fantastic.
just remember the name and throw it out there. Yeah.
Well, I want to thank you for doing this, my friend, and we will. I'm sure we'll hook up again later this year and see how things are going. I was very impressed with what I saw, and best of good fortune to you guys as you're going forward in the year.
Thank you, Sean. Thanks for your time, man. I really appreciate it. It was nice meeting you.
You as well. Ciao.